While following Katie Joy's fuckery, I was introduced to another YouTube creator named Critical K. I wondered how I hadn't heard of her. I was shocked to see she had been on YouTube for quite a while, but barely had 13,000 subs. I mean, here was Katie on YouTube only about 20 months or so, and already had about 130,000 subs at the time. Then there was Kay, who had been on YouTube almost 7 years now and barely broke 10,000. Katie and Kay are kind of alike. Well, they're alike in how much they're disliked anyway. The difference, though, in my opinion, is that Katie doesn't try to be disliked, let alone try hard like Kay does. My first experience with Kay was over the SL custody case. Kay, like Katie, also believed SL was lying about her abuse and made it their mission to spread hate toward the father and shame SL. Though I believe Katie truly does think SL is just being a brat or lying to get her way, I think Kay's desire lies more with the vindication of the accused. Come to find out, victim blaming isn't unusual for Kay. She has a substantial online reputation as being kind of a fangirl for convicted murderer Chris Watts. Kay has gone so far as to blame his wife Shanann for her own murder at the hands of Chris. I'm not sure what she believes their two little girls done to bring about their subsequent murders by their dad, though. As I learned more about Kay, I discovered that controversial views is kind of her thing. Going back as far as 10 years ago in Yahoo Answers, then she was known as Conserva Mommy, where she commented how mothers should not work and how Arabs are given free shit by our government. For example, I posted this accidentally in Marriage and Relationships and want to repost it in the parenting section. I live in Michigan, and we are inundated with the Tara Grant case right now. Many aspects of the case bother me, but there is one aspect that bothers me as a mother. She worked long hours outside the home and had au pairs come in her home to take care of her children. She paid other women to do what I believe was not only her job and obligation, but also a treasure that was given to her. Many women today are too busy climbing that corporate ladder, trying to prove themselves in society and falsely believing that the daily activities of caring for and loving her children, reading, getting them dressed, serving their meals, cuddling them to sleep, guiding their moral development, etc., can all be done better or sufficiently by someone else. Please don't give me the two-income excuse. Two dedicated parents can work different shifts and find a compromise if they really wanted to. One aspect of the Tara Grant murder that has bothered me is the fact that this woman had several au pairs coming into the home and was often out of the country on business trips. I only want to draw on this woman's life, not her horrible death, as a launching point for what I think is an important debate. Call me old-fashioned and traditional, but I personally do not think a woman can make her children, her husband, and her home her first priority when she hires people to care for her children in her home while she is away long hours. I find it a bit selfish when a woman gives birth to children, but then for whatever reason has no desire to actually mother them and pays other women to mother them for her while she climbs the corporate ladder. I think if you decide to have children, you should parent them, not some au pair from some foreign country. I'm going to assume you mean Arabs. Why are Arabs so well off? Because they get tax breaks to open businesses in this country. That's right, our federal government actually gives them money and tax incentives to open party stores and other various business ventures. I assume you are a white guy. Doesn't it make you mad to know that you, a naturally born citizen, do not qualify for the same incentives and tax breaks given to Arabs who are not born here and come here to take advantage of our country's generosity and then sit around and bitch about our involvement in the Middle East trying to straighten out their freaking messes? Then there are more recent posts on Facebook regarding race and the romantic love between slaves and owners. For example, I've been doing a little digging into the one-drop rule. This is fascinating stuff, and being the history lover I am, it is always fun to read about the sex and love lives of our forebearers. Take Jefferson, for example. He has 6 children with his lover, Sally Hemings, who was 3/4 white. I think this history undermines the theory we are an inherently racist nation. Now, before you come at me with accusations of rape, I don't need to be lectured about that. I realize rape occurs in all races, but this can't be all accounted for by rape. There are some love stories in here. There were children born of love and mutual attraction. The very thought of that is a light point in an otherwise dark narrative for me anyway. The evidence is overwhelming that Jefferson fell in love with Sally and she him, and neither seemed to care about the social mores of the time. Think of it in terms of historical people, not in modern day terms. Jefferson was powerful and wealthy. Women love powerful and wealthy men today and allow them to basically keep them, don't they? Also, bear in mind, Sally had freedoms and privileges other women of her stature did not have. Wouldn't that be attractive to a woman of her day? I am sure he took care of her and her children, and they were also afforded opportunities and privileges they wouldn't have otherwise had. Don't women marry wealthy men today for that reason? Doesn't mean they don't fall in love with the men they choose to be with. How much worse is this than arranged marriages? Sally chose him, in my opinion, and he chose her. For example, when the Vikings invaded England, they took many slaves and quite often they assimilated and became Viking and never left. In my opinion, they fell in love. Also, don't you think many of those sexual relationships were consensual? Not all were rape. I know it's easy to assume everything was about slavery historically, but it really wasn't. Even after slavery was abolished, many black women and men chose white partners. I have been doing some reading on Jefferson and Sally Hemings. In my opinion, they were truly in love. I actually think it was the norm. Hollywood has fed us a load of bullshit. Humans being what humans are, I think there were a lot of amazing love stories that have been buried because they don't fit the narrative. I don't have a damn thing to atone for. It is definitely ritualistic, which wholly implies peasantry. We will be treated like peasants if we behave like them. This shit is put out there to make you feel less than or outside the curve if you don't agree. This is becoming sickeningly obvious at this point. There are also her views on the murder of George Floyd. I'm not even convinced the knee killed him, so I can't say at this point if it was excessive. I need more facts. I need the body cam footage. Police stop claiming it was over a $20 bill. This is false. The initial call was he was intoxicated. When they found him behind the wheel of a car and frothing at the mouth, they detained him. There was no way they were going to let him drive. So why was he resisting? He should not have resisted to begin with. I wouldn't label it brutality. I would say he contributed to the reasons they had to restrain him. The restraint, plus his drug abuse and compromised health, caused his death. Public funeral? All this fanfare? Come on. I am so over this. This dude wasn't a former president or Nobel Prize winner. This is beyond stupid. Anyone crying or claiming to be heartbroken over George Floyd, other than friends or family, is faking it. This carrying on and on and on and on and on and on about him is convincing me this was staged. It really is. No way this is real. You can't deny the irony of I can't breathe, considering corona, victims can't breathe. Almost like they're exploiting that real fear. It's important to note that I can't breathe didn't come from corona. Those were in fact Eric Garner's final words before he was murdered by New York City police in 2014. As well as her anti-Semite views and her awe of Hitler. Don't attack me, please. Be kind in your responses, and I will as well. But could this article be true? What he did for Germany was remarkable. His defeat spelled their ruin. They're a socialist toilet infiltrated with Arabs now. Coincidence? Why did Hollywood and history writers go over the top in demonizing him? If my daughter kicked a police officer, I would slam dunk her. Karen. Stephanie, you're a scumbag piece of shit. Karen, did you get beaten to a bloody pulp? I'm glad you deserved it. Now run along like a little peasant. Karen, did your family get cooked in an oven? I'm German. I heard Jews taste like chicken. Her attempts to discredit Black Lives Matter. I can't believe how behind I am on this. Black Lives Matter was created by a couple of men-hating black communist Marxist women who reject the family unit and the importance of fathers. Blown away right now. Why aren't more people discussing this? We actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular, we're trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on ideological theories. I don't care what label they try to threaten me with. I will say it loudly. And movement rooted in Marxism needs to be put down and put down quickly. Helena, if you really want to be blown away, look into who funds them. Then you will see who, quote-unquote, trains them. Kay, let me guess, a famous Zionist? And lastly, her assertions that white privilege is not a thing because her kids can't afford Ivy League school. Please stop using that phrase, white privilege. It really is incendiary rhetoric, and I don't like it. It's cheap, accusatory, and lazy verbiage. Are there people born into privilege in this world? Absolutely, since the dawn of time. This is a fact of the human hierarchy you will never be able to protest away. Making it about skin color is narrow-minded and just plain ignorant. Take, for example, Malaya and Sasha Obama. These are examples of young girls in America born into privilege. They certainly have more opportunities than my children just by virtue virtue of their powerful father. You won't even see me complain about that. Barack Obama worked very hard to climb all the way to the White House. He is driven, ambitious, and earned his status. I respect that and respect it of all of our presidents. But the fact remains his daughters didn't earn it. He did. But they benefit from it, and so will their children. This is the very definition of privilege. Rather than be resentful of that, I recognize it, accept it, and focus on doing my best and teach my children the same. My great-grandfather escaped certain death in Prussia when he was a teenager loaded on a train car for Siberia. He literally jumped off that train and hiked through snow back to Germany and an uncertain future. My family ultimately ended up here, and the promise of freedom and prosperity. Just by virtue of the migration of Europeans to the United States over the last 100 to 200 years, you have a lot of folks here who came from very meager beginnings and worked hard and didn't have anything handed to them. Their families are not privileged, simply by nature of being born of these people. Most of us have to work hard just like everyone else and struggle just like everyone else. My children can't afford Ivy League schools, and doors will never open for them because I didn't earn that for them. To narrow it all down to one inflammatory slogan is peasant mentality, and I don't like it. It causes people to become defensive, and it divides people based on their skin pigment, which they have no control over. She claims to not care what quote-unquote they say about her, but she spends a lot of time caring about what other people say about her. She also cares a lot, it seems, about how much attention she causes them to give her and whether or not she was successful in gaslighting them to show up in her live streams. She seems overly concerned with convincing everyone that she isn't a peasant, rather than realizing that the only ones overly worried about social status are those who know they just don't measure up. Between making videos that go on and on for hours that address her haters, posts seeking reassurance from followers to describe to her how her words have changed their lives, she seems to be doing this just for attention. The attention, she claims, comes because haters just want to get into her control top panties, as opposed to her being thirsty as fuck for people to notice her and her shocking views. If it wasn't so obvious that this was all for the purpose of shocking and gaslighting people, she could cause about as much harm to people as Katie has.